have to go in here and click go live. Maybe.
Oh yeah, you are now. I see you on the
Is it coming
YouTube
up now?
channel. Yep. So how does it work? You are the one that's everyone that speaks like it's Zoom. Whatever it's on Zoom gets displayed on the YouTube channel.
So
You have a huge delay.
make sure you kill your streams. Otherwise, you'll be hearing yourself. All right, I think I have all of the windows killed. Okay, so we are still streaming. Excellent condition. No one else is watching, but for sanity's sake, I will just say what we're doing. So this is our weekly show and tell. It's a short form, just a way for us to get together and show off what we thought is cool. It doesn't have any set expectations. So just come along with us for the ride. So who is showing first?
That's
I think
Gabe.
it's me. Yeah. So I will click here, share screen. Um, I want to just share my VS Code because I'll be talking about VS Code. Where are you? Uh, Here. It's called Code, not VS Code. All right. Can you all see my screen? Yep. All right. So yeah, a lot of people know we Hashrocket use Vim to do Rails, Ruby, Elixir, and JavaScript. Uh, but I've been using VS Code for the past, I don't know, few years for JavaScript and especially TypeScript nowadays. And I feel, and it has a bunch of like nice shortcuts, a bunch of things, a bunch of features, plugins, and I think it's just worth sharing some of the things that I do on my daily basis with VS Code. So here I have this hook, uh, use location permission. I've been building this app on my side project here, and it's like a mobile app that connects to Bluetooth. And for Android, you have to request the location permission. It's kind of like weird that for connect to the Bluetooth device, you have to ask for the location permission. So I wrote this hook here that just does that check. So the first line is like, okay, and if I'm not on Android, then I just return. So this is just the guard of that hook. And then I do a check. So do I have the permission, the location permission access? So this check function is coming from this React Native permissions module. Uh, and if it's not denied, I return. And then if I don't have the permission, then I display this whole thing here, right? This message. So this part here is a little, it's too long, right? It has, I don't know, 15 lines. Or like, let's refactor this, right? I feel like we could put a function here instead of calling this whole block here. So as a Vim user, what do I do here, right? I have VS Code with Vim. So in my case, you can do this multiple ways, right? So my way is doing this. I do Shift V and then Shift%. That way, I'm selecting that whole block, and then I press D to delete that thing, and then I create a function. So let's say display alert message. And then after the hook here, I define that function, right? So function display alert message, and then I paste that thing that is on the buffer. So that's it, right? That's how I would do this in Vim, that refactor. On VS Code, so I'm gonna undo this. They have some shortcuts to do that. So I still have to select the whole thing. So I'm gonna select the same way, Shift%, select this block, and I'm gonna have to use my mouse. So there might be some keyboard shortcuts that you can enable this, but I don't know yet how to do it. So I right click, and I have this option here, refactor. And I click here, and it says extract to function in module scope. I do this, I click that, and it does exactly what I did. And it prompts me to name that function. So I'm gonna do the same, display alert message. So VS Code has that built-in. So this kind of refactor where you're like moving your code around, you can use this kind of shortcuts. It's pretty handy. I really like this. There's another thing that I use is, so I have this function now, right? But I didn't like the name, right? So now I want to rename it. So if I was on Vim, right? So what would I do first? I would do Shift star here. So now I put that phrase, that name, display alert message, as my search keyword. So now I can press N and navigate right on this thing. And like navigating all occurrences of that string. So then I can just rename this to display message. And then I press N to go to the next one, and then dot. So it renames the function, renames the thing that I'm calling. So on VS Code, you can do function F2. So you use like the F2, you have to have that on your keyboard. And that prompts me to that thing that it just says enter to rename. So I can come here and just say alert message, enter. And then it changes the function call and the function name. So this kind of shortcut is really useful. So the same idea here applies. So this is another hook. This hook is the heart of my entire app. It has, I don't know, few lines. It's a lot of things here. But what I want to show here was this. So this week, I had to do like some weird stuff because of the Bluetooth device that the app connects. There are some edge cases that I had to handle. And one of them was like, I have to create like this data here. So I had to create this data on this specific part of the code. This was like a few months ago. And now this week I realized, I have to do the same thing in another place of the app. So what I did here, I was like, okay, let me see if I can use the refactor function as well. So what I did is I selected this part, right click, refactor the same thing, and then extract to function in module. And then I give the name for the function, right? So build split data. So on this case here, what it did was it created a function, but it also detected that I am using two variables inside that function, right? The thing that I extracted on the refactor, I was using two variables. So it was interval and interval count. So if I go to the function that it got created by the refactor tool, I can see that it put the two arguments, interval, and it already defined the type because this is TypeScript. So it put interval as the type interval and the interval count as the type number. So this is also something really, really useful. Like when you're doing refactor, like, oh, you have this function that has a bunch of lines, or you want to extract this code that's going to be shared, you can use this type of things. Another thing that I do, and I think this will be the last one. So I have this component here that just like a screen, and it renders a bunch of things, and also renders like, this is like a table, right? And then it renders a bunch of rows, kind of. And each row is like this track item. So what I did initially was I had this track, I extracted this logic to a component, right? But it's inside the same file, right? So it's inside this discovery screen TSX. So what I can do here, I was like, okay, this component is getting huge, right? Usually you do this for like stateless components, like really small things. You put inside the same file. So, but now it's getting big, right? It's increasing its size. So I want to extract that to a file. So yeah, I do the same thing. You select the whole thing, right click, refactor, move to a new file. So you do this, and now by default, it knew the name, right? Based on the name of that variable was track item. The new file, it gets created as the same name. That code that was there is present here with all the imports that was being used. And then, well, I save it here now. I use prettier, reformats the whole thing. And when I come back to the original file, right, I can see that it imported that item, the new component here now, and removed from this file. And that's it. So it took care of like removing the imports from here and putting the other imports from to this other file. So in terms of like refactoring, I feel like VS Code is like ways ahead of like other tools for editors for JavaScript and TypeScript. So check it out. Sometimes you might be surprised with all the features that VS Code has. That's it. Thanks, guys.
Nice. Soft clap.
Any questions?
Is
No,
Hashrocket
it's-
becoming a VS Code shop now?
What's that?
Is Hashrocket becoming a VS Code shop?
For TypeScript and JavaScript, I'd say half and half of us are. Some of us, yeah, still using Vim. I think some of the Chicago folks are using Vim with, but like the Jack's office, I think a lot of us are using VS Code.
For me,
Dylan
it
and
depends
Mary-
on where, like what I'm working on. Like for some reason, I can't seem to do Ruby in VS Code, but I do all of my JavaScript in VS Code. I don't know if it's a mental shift or if there's something there.
Yeah, same for me. If it's Ruby, I go to Vim, Tmux. But if it's TypeScript, JavaScript, VS Code.
Dylan and Mary have been doing more Ruby and VS Code. I know Mary like pretty much only uses VS Code now, unless she's pairing with someone. We've like last week we were talking about like building more shortcuts for VS Code and Ruby. Like Dylan and I had actually both built like Turbux like shortcuts for VS Code, so we can run like RSpec and Cucumber tests from VS Code with like some kind of like key binding. And like we were talking about that last week. It might be interesting to like explore some more of that.
Yeah, that would be great. Yeah, you can open the terminal here, right, on VS Code, and like if there is a way to send the Turbox stuff, like run the RSpec file here at the bottom, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, we already have stuff that works.
Oh, you have? Okay.
Dylan has something, and I have something as well. I think they're pretty similar. We just haven't like explicitly compared implementations, but we were talking about it the other day.
Cool. Yeah. Show and tell. Show and tell.
Try to share that stuff.
Awesome.
I've used, I haven't tried any of this fancy, cool refactoring stuff, but I know that so far in Conqueror of Completion, like all of the features of the language server are implemented in Vim, the ones I've looked at. I even got like Ruby variable renaming that renames all references working this last week, which is cool in Vim with Coq. It's way better than Ale in that it just uses language server features and leaves the mapping up to you. So probably a lot of the stuff you could do in Vim, but then it's like why, other than being consistent, I guess.
Yeah, I think if you're on a project where you have to touch both, right, JavaScript, TypeScript, and Ruby, like it's better to be in the same editor, right? You don't have to keep like switching. So if you can have all these features on Vim, yeah, that would be great.
Yeah, I know that remote support still sucks in VS Code. So Tmux is better for
Yeah. Cool.
Nice. Should on to the next one.
I think it's you, Chris.
Alrighty, let me share my screen. Let me find the screen I want to share. I think it's gonna be, oh man, I have like 4 iTerms open. Which one is it? I think it's this one. Okay, so you all know I've been getting into Julia. So I just wanted to show some sort of function calling and functional things in Julia. So let me open a REPL. And I guess the first thing I want to show is that we have a pipe operator here. So I can do piping. That's pretty cool. There's also a functional composition operator. So I can say identity, and this isn't really like a practical example, right? But and then get the circle operator, which is the functional composition operator. And then now I have a function that calls identity twice. And so I can say, fn1, and that returns 1. And that's, obviously this isn't doing anything, but it sort of breaks down for the piping, it breaks down when you have things with more than one argument. So it doesn't really work like I would expect for things with more than one argument. So let me define a function like fn2 equals x comma y, and then we can say return x y, and when you return 2 things like this, that's just going to be a tuple. It's just going to return a tuple there. So if I say 1 and pipe that to fn2, it's like, hey, that's a method error. Okay, but what if I pass in an argument here? And this is what we would do in Elixir, right? Oh man, no method matching. Okay. Let me see if this works. fn2. Yeah, it's working. So what does Julia want you to do here? I think Julia wants you to do stuff like this, where you say x and then fn to x, and then you're like this. And then so what we're doing is we're passing 1, we're piping 1 to an anonymous function, and then that anonymous function gets called, and then we get our tuple back. So I don't know, that doesn't feel as good as Elixir's pipe, but it's still piping. So another thing that's cool about Julia is that you can, you have these anonymous functions, but they also have a do block syntax like Ruby. But in Ruby, it's a little weird, right? Because Ruby's like, it expects you can pass a block to a function, but you sort of have to know that you're passing a block to the function and treat that block as a block. But in Julia, it's just another way to do an anonymous function. So let's say map and then identity. So this is something that we would generally do in Julia, 1, 2, 3, and we get back an array 1, 2, 3, right? So I can sort of do the same thing, 1, 2, 3, and now I can do this. So identity x and so that's a way that you can use block syntax here. So let me try to define a function that does that. So I can say fn for or I'll just say call fn. So we'll pass in a function and then we'll call that here we'll just pass in like no arguments like that. So now we have a call fn function and I can say do I have to call that with parens. Then I can say like print line high and then end and we get high there. Or I could just do it the normal way, which is just print line, just passing in an anonymous function like that. So I sort of wish Ruby worked like that instead of having sort of two different ways to pass around functions and blocks. Yeah, that's it for me. Cool. Nice. Well, shoot, we got any other show and tells in the mix?
If no one else has anything, I'll do something real quick. It's not anything that I coded, but I thought it was pretty cool.
It's not necessarily a show and tell, but I can. Well, it is a show and tell. There's just no good outcome. I can show you guys how I jacked up my home bridge, if you want.
Okay.
I don't know what that means.
Okay, hold on. Let me.
Sounds like you're gonna tell us.
I'm gonna do a quick one, Andrew. It's literally just showing one GitHub
Go for it.
repo. That could be interesting, and then I'll toss it over to you.
Go for it.
Go to my GitHub. Then go to my starred. Then go to awesome C++. C++, like many languages, doesn't come with a built-in JSON library. I think this is like the big one that a lot of people use. Its repo has 21,000 stars, but there's an up-and-coming competitor, and there's another one called Rapid JSON, but then there's this other one called SimDJSON that's also gaining steam, 12.4K. This one has 9.9K, and that's my only metric for determining what library to use at this point, because I don't know. But these guys are like, we're 2.5 times faster than RapidJSON and 25 times faster than the other one, like the one with 21,000. And it's like, we can minify 6.6 gigabytes per second of JSON. So apparently there's some crazy work being done in the front of highly optimized JSON parsing and manipulation in the world of C++ that would be kind of cool if it were in other languages. But anywho, that's it. Over to you, Andrew.
Okay, I'll try to do my best to catch you guys up to where I am. Oh, snap. How do I share screen? Here we go. All right, we'll go to desktop 1. All right, you guys see the screen? Okay, cool. So if you guys don't know, Homebridge is a service or a service / open source project you can download, and it lets you use third-party crappy smart things from your iPhone, but like within HomeKit, which is like super nice. So yeah, essentially like acts as like a hub. So you can run it off of like Windows or OS X or Linux. Like the common thing you do is like you run it off of like a Raspberry Pi. So that's what I've been doing. Anyways, like it's just it's just like a JavaScript HTTP server that like interacts with your devices in your phone. So when you install this on a Linux machine or like on any machine, you have to like hook it in to like start it like whenever the machine starts up. And you can do that via a service they provide or in your own way. So when I originally installed Homebridge on my Pi, which is like what's here, I just had a script that ran in a cron job to start Homebridge on startup, but I kept having like problems where like my Homebridge would crash randomly and I'd have to reboot the Pi. So I talked to Dylan the other day and I learned about this thing called HB service, which is part of Homebridge library for like installing like a UI. And I had that UI already. So I tried to install this and it totally broke my Homebridge installation. And I'll try to show you why. So here in the root of my users folder, I have a .homebridge folder. You can see that right there. And this is like where you're supposed to install your Homebridge just by itself. So when you call the Homebridge service, which is the thing that hooks into systemd to start your Homebridge, it does some really weird stuff. So I'm going to pass it port 8080 for the install command. And this thing is just supposed to know where my Homebridge is installed at, right? All right, so now it's asking for a user. I'm going to tell it I'm the root user, and then I'm going to say allow root. So I just want to run Homebridge as the root user. And so here's the weird part is that the service is supposed to know where my Homebridge installation is automatically because I followed the Homebridge README. It doesn't because it installed a new Homebridge service, which it put here in varlib Homebridge. So if you look at that, that's identical to the Homebridge directory I have here. Bridge, sorry, no slash. And we can further confirm this by looking at the config JSON, which is usually what holds the configuration for all of your SmartThing plugins. And let's see. Oh, hold on, wait, this looks weird. What, did this just work? Wow, this might have just worked. I've spent all night trying to mess with this. This might have just worked.
Nice work, Andrew.
Oh my God.
Good job, Andrew. We knew you could do it.
What? I just needed to pair with 10 people. I don't believe this.
FYI, go ahead and change your password after you're done sharing.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, HB.
So what's connected now?
It should just be. No, I don't believe this is running. There's something borked. I don't know. HB service is bad. It doesn't actually know where things are. I've just been messing with this like all day.
Norm, I'm pretty sure when you install Homebridge config UI, it's doing all of the services are created under the Homebridge user. So I think that's probably why it would generally look there.
Yeah.
I thought I saw a log configuration in the config file. Did I not?
You did, but it's like it's messed up, right? Like Okay, so it's not there.
I think it was var log homebridge in the config file.
Yeah, it's empty. And then
Empty.
hold on, I want to make sure this is stopped. Okay. Doing this for uninstall. Okay, and then again for my sanity, because I don't believe that this is actually there. Okay, so it's not there. So we're going to install the service again. Install port 8080 user root, and I want to allow the root as the user. Yeah, what was happening is that it was just blowing away like whatever was in Verilib Homebridge and just creating a new instance that's just like totally different from the one that I had actually installed. Just like infuriating. All right, yeah, so this looks right. And then if I cat that, oh, might be config. Yeah, it's just like, it just totally, it doesn't even pay attention to the homebridge you have installed. It just like creates a new one, which is infuriating because the README of homebridge tells you to put it in a certain directory, but then HB service doesn't know where that is for some reason. And I like source dive the command line arguments, and there's like not like a flag to say where your homebridge is installed. So what you have to do is you have to edit the actual systemd service, which I just figured out where that was. So I think it's just a matter of changing this guy right here and reloading the daemon, but yeah, that's what I'm going to be trying to figure out this afternoon for the rest of my afternoon.
Nice.
So I'm going to go change that password real quick because I forgot my config JSON had that in there. You're welcome, internet. You can turn on my balcony lights if you beat me to the password.
Oh man, just in time for Halloween.
I know, right? All right, I'll give it back to someone else.
Soft clap for Andrew. Traditional soft clap. And then Brian, looked like you might have been trying to get into the show and tell a little bit earlier. You got a show and tell?
Yeah, I could jump in.
Alrighty.
This is what you and I were working on, Chris. I want to show you some client stuff, but another time. So we started working on making a game of life using all of the cool Elm libraries from this guy, Ian McKenzie. Super nice guy. He's on the Elm Slack in the geometry channel. And he'd love to chat about this stuff. So let me show you what it do. It will melt your computer. I'm sure the frame rate is even crappier over Zoom, but
it looks amazing.
It's playing Conway's Game of Life, but each generation is stacking upon the previous rather than replacing it. This is what me and Ryan started during our mini conf hack time, but didn't quite finish. So I obsessively worked on it for a little while. The darker colors are places that have survived. So something survives between generations, it gets longer. And the hard part here was optimizing entity count, because we're dealing with, it's an array of like, this is 30 by 30. If I reload, there'll be a different tower. It's 30 by 30, and I made it stop after it generates like, you know, width plus height. So it goes up to 60, which is, you know, 30 times 30 times 60. So not everything's going to be alive, you know, but you got a lot of possibilities. And it looked like on average, well, now on average, it generates about 4,000 individual entities, which all have to be, well, I'm using transforms on the GPU. So I'm actually only rendering one box of each length and then moving it around to all of the places that it needs to be. But it's still a crap ton of data. And, you know, initially when it was doing, when I was not grouping by generation, it was, the frame rate was much worse, because it would wind up with like 10,000 entities instead of 4,000 by the end. So it was interesting trying to like go through and group different generations by how long they'd lived. I'm actually storing, so this felt kind of gross to me. I'm like storing the output of the calculation to build each, the height of each block. I'm storing that in the model, because otherwise on each frame, it has to do a bunch of weird things to map into those data structures in the render loop. So instead, every time it creates a new generation, which was like, I think it's on like the half second, quarter second maybe, it recalculates all of the points and how tall they are. So the X, Y, and Z of the start, and then the length. If you don't know, Ian McKinsey's cool libraries, show you some of the fun stuff that they do. Like, let's see, we can go to the incredibly useful Explorer Dealy. Works, I don't know how well it works in other languages, but it works really well in Elm. So you can have like really messy files and not worry about it, because you've got a nice alphabetized hierarchy of your functions and data types over here. So let's see, 2 points right here. Yeah, so one of the cool things you get to do is you get to work with lengths. And, you know, this is a type alias of mine, but if we look at the place that these are made, I'm just going to be in this recursive mess somewhere. 2 segments. Well, let's just, yeah. Right, so to create a cell entity, I get to say like the length is the height in centimeters. You get to describe things like the path of the camera in speeds. So the camera's viewpoint is calculated by its eye point position. So I make it like wander up and around the tower. And I get to say like the rate at which it zooms out, and it reads very nicely, I think. You know, it's centimeters per second. So the zoom rate is 5 centimeters per second. The rotation rate that the camera travels around is 5 degrees per second. So you have like a very concrete engineering terms feeling of ways to deal with this stuff when I need to turn so I get the number of milliseconds that have happened since the last frame from my animation frame call that's built into Elm to get the milliseconds. But I can convert those into duration, and then I get to say I have the elapsed time here. So the actual degrees that we have rotated is the rotation rate of 5 degrees per second for the elapsed amount of time. And the variable elapsed keeps with it the unit that it is in. So all of that conversion from milliseconds to seconds happens automatically. And yeah, so then you get to do it here again. I don't know why I declared this as a separate variable, but not this one. But here's the rate of zoom for the amount of time. So I think like it's a neat way to think about higher level abstractions that super detailed and specific types are also a way to group logic and, you know, pull things out. So rather than, oh, well, like, this is the first time I've delved into this kind of thing in depth is with the McKinsey's libraries. Most of the time I would just be working in Elm with tuples of floats, shit like that. But with this library, things get more concrete and it really pays off in readability. So it's a different kind of refactoring that I'm really enjoying. Let's watch it one more time. I closed it because it will melt your computer.
So do you have it stop? Does it stop growing after a specific generation? Is that what you were saying?
Yeah, so the width and height added together is the limit on it. So in this case, we did find out that Elm will crash if you make it 61 by 61. So that's not supposed to happen, but it do. 30 by 30 is like big enough to be interesting, but small enough that it can actually finish without freezing the whole computer.
I feel like just like visually or artistically, I feel like this is like I want to live in this building. You know what I mean? I want to live on the 60th floor, and I think that would be awesome.
I can show you one other neat thing about it. I can give you, let's see, an example. There's this shape that this person at a Ruby conference saw me developing this, my first game of life in Elm, and drew this on a napkin and slipped it to me. And was like, you're gonna need this. So then I put it in, and it's like, you know, just a simple shape that explodes and becomes a bunch of gliders and goes flying all around. And it's pretty neat. So I made that, I hard coded that as a option you can only like turn on manually via futzing with the code. But I should be able to do that. 1 second here. Yeah, so this is the flower.
We got some questions from the chat, Brian.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, Jonathan Jackson from Whereabouts Unknown says.
I've heard of that guy.
He says, could you store the frames and play it back without performing the calculations?
Yeah, that's a good idea, but you would still have the incredibly high number of total entities on the screen, which is like you're going to hit a performance limit with Elm 3D Scene. I'm thinking about trying to write. This is that flower unrolling as a tower. I'm thinking about writing a separate renderer because I've been trying to also learn GLSL. Try to do my own ray marcher, but until I get there, you know, the performance limit is really the total number of entities, not the calculation of the frames. But I could store them in a history, and then you could play it without having to wait any time for the calculation, which with a better renderer would be a really cool smooth effect. Try that.
Mm-hmm. Jonathan Jackson also asks, can you offload the calculations to a service worker?
I mean, you could, but as you can see here, like as it plays, it's really, well, I can put a link in the chat to the LE of it so you can play with it. But like there's a small drop in frame rate for each quarter second when it calculates a new one. But like I said, it's really, we're bottlenecked on entity count. So the amount of extra time that takes compared to just having this many things in the scene, I think is smaller. So that'd be a refactor for once there's a better renderer as well.
And what we're seeing now is that you have a predefined starting point, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
that little, I call it the flower. It's just like five cells, and they turn into gliders and go all around.
Yeah.
It's always going to be deterministic.
This also reminds me of coral, like a coral reef and how coral reefs grow.
Yeah, I was thinking the same.
Yeah.
It's pretty awesome. Puts Game of Life into a different sort of perspective.
Yeah. Any other questions? I'll grab that link.
Did Jonathan Jackson ask one more question?
Yeah, he asked, can you recycle entities and coalesce the levels to one object?
In a way, I have to find the link. In a way, I am recycling entities because let me find translate. Yeah, so when I turn it into entities, I use these Scene 3D translate. So WebGL, the Elm Explorations Blessed WebGL package automatically caches meshes if they don't change. So, but then this translating happens in GLSL, at least according to the library author. So I'm actually only creating all the entities at the origin point, and then I'm translating them on the GPU to all the different places that they're needed. So there's only one box of each height that is used that's actually an entity, or that's actual like geometry that's copied to the card. And that's potentially, like there's a lot of warnings out there that copying meshes and geometry to the card is a big bottleneck. So I'm not sure how much of a performance boost I'm getting by doing the translation in GLSL, but it seems like it would be significant.
Nice. Any more questions for Brian? Any more show and tells?
Let me find that link before we shut down the call here. So
Okay.
play with it.
I can show a quick thing.
Sure. I think you're muted, Matt.
Well, poo. This is an app called Carbonize, and it solves the problem that we run into a lot while putting presentations together, where we don't know what to do with our code to present it in a way that's easy to look at. So the app literally just lets you paste a code snippet into it, and it will pre-format it this way. You can choose the different color schemes appropriate, whether it's one you like or one that's better for presentation. And it auto code highlights, but you could force it to whatever. You can change the background. And then when you're ready, you just hit this little button and it copies the image right out and you just paste it right into your presentation software. So I thought that that was a quick little thing that easily solves that problem, especially when sometimes you like reformat a piece of code in a presentation, like screws up all of the slides. These would just be easy to regenerate. So there you go, Carbonize.
Nice.
Also, heads up, there's some VS Code plugins that do that. Just if you didn't want to change environments.
Very cool.
Yeah. It actually might be based on that same app, to be honest. Like at least like some of the ones I've seen.
I like accidentally this app the other day, so I don't know where it's from.
Hey Brian, can I put that in the YouTube chat or no?
Yeah, man, it's Ellie apps lost, right? Or and the batteries of anyone who follows the link.
Eliap's the code sandbox of Elm, right? Is that the deal right there?
Yeah.
Okay. Nice. All right. Well, I think we're all shown and told, right? So, all right. I'll see you next week. Same bat time, maybe the same bat channel. We shall see.
Should we come up with was that your attempt at coming up with a closing catchphrase?
I mean, it's shown and told, right? It's been the same
shown
one
and
for.
Yeah, sorry, I was ad-libbing, but I didn't mean to usurp shown and told. Yeah.
Oh, because it'd be cool to have a like. This was shown and told live from.
You have been shown.
You have been shown and told live. Anyway.
All right. Well, okay. Wait. I feel like you were just giving that a trial run rather than. Okay, go for it, Vidal. This is all you, Vidal.
You have been shown and told live.
Love it.
See ya.
Miss you guys.